Atha Yoga Nasasanam. And now yoga. I keep on saying that because I recently, like over the past year, came across a book that changed my everything. I had found the manual that was left behind for us that I was looking for when I was a kid. And that is the book called The Light on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I haven't even gotten into reading the whole book. I read the prologue before the sutras. I had to read like 3 sentences and stop and then take like a good 10 minutes to comprehend what was just said. And still I would forget it because it's just too much information. It's pure everything you need. So, in such a way, it's an honor to Patanjali, but it also means like, and now I'm giving you this union, and now yoga. Now we talk on union. Now it's the dissertation. So that's why I say that in the beginning. The shirt's really nice. It's still a little chilly out, so I needed to put on another layer. It's all about layering. I remember every few years my style would change, actually. And I'm sure other people go through this. You dress like this one way, and then eventually, like I was wearing suits at one point in time. I would dress up or dress out. Dressing up is being sophisticated. Dressing out was going into my savage mode, having like my long boots and the war paint. I'd go out like that. So, yeah, that's a thing. So death and my relationship with death. Inside the story that I used to tell myself of who I am. The thing I've been recounting to you. When I was inside of pain, I wanted to hurt others. It went from being inside myself and taking it. When I decided that's enough and fight back against that thing in the astral world, it kind of translated over into my actual character. Like whatever is going on out here, that's enough of that. Then you start having the bad dreams and the cult stuff like I was seeing, and you grow no mercy. I'm pretty sure that if anyone who knows what's going on about that whole dark order and what they do, if you sit here and you hear the words and you visualize it, I was there seeing it while I was asleep. You grow to be cold and to have no mercy. You are a jagged thing. You are a creature of the abyss. That's where their magic went against them. They started putting all the information for magic into the TV shows. And they thought that the children were so asleep and enthralled in their programming, or that, they can go pick them out. They wanted them to be enthralled so they can go pick them up because the kids get abducted all the time and they would have access to that realm still, but they wouldn't know what it was. Some of us played with it. Yep. We saw it, we touched it, we played with it. We came to understand your little magic spells that they were doing. And so inside of me, because of them and the way that they had set the world up, all this horrible stuff going on around us, I had wanted to become the monster that hunts the monsters, right? That's what you do, astral realm type stuff. You hunt out your own dark side. They are the darkest reflections of what man can be. And by paying them attention, we feed them our energy instead of being what man could be. I didn't know that back then. Death. Death is very curious. As I told you all before, my grandma died when I was little, and I didn't cry. At her funeral, I was confused about why, if she was going to a better place, was people crying. Then I went to the closet and shut the door, turned off all the lights, slowed my breathing, and proceeded to try to let myself die. And then I had an experience. Death became something that I followed instead of a way. Because of that, I came to become a death wreath of sorts. Whenever people die, and someone's taking it really hard with grief, I'm the person that comes and shows up because I know death. I did not live separate from death inside of myself. We have a problem with death and knowing the mortality of man. All things that are born must die. It is a rule. It's no big thing about it. For you were not born, you were created. Your inner self. You never die. However, the things of flesh and of man and of carnal pleasure, those joys, eventually will have to die all the way off. Right now, people play games of, I want to have this car, so I need to make this money. I want to have this house, so I need to make this money. And they're going to continue to play those games as long as it fulfills their senses. But if you want something deeper than that, you start realizing that a car gets me places, my shoes allow me to walk. And everything starts to take on a different meaning of what you own and what you don't own. For all the material things that you have will disappear. You will die. That is guaranteed to you. No one can run away from death. Death is ever present and always there. Are you going to go out and get hit by a car? You don't know. Are you going to die in your sleep when you go to sleep? You don't know. We take for granted the days that we have. We think that we are immortal in the flesh, but dead when the flesh is gone because we have no spirit. I don't get where that comes from. Why would you think that? You, the acting principle inside of the body that's having an experience, is a thing. You are be. There's a book that came out about the Roswell alien crash, and it talks about one of the bodies, one of the aliens that were in there, Arl. She sat down. She was a commander. She spoke telepathically to one of the nurses because the nurse didn't want to harm her. Everyone else, all the men were like, "What is this? This is another thing." They were afraid. The nurse was like, "Are you injured?" For some, some people are like that, caring for all life and such. We go out and get deer, and help them out, all that type of stuff. Arl talked to her about being an immortal spiritual being. You are because you are thought, so you be. You is be. You're an immortal spirit. Why would you think that the flesh, you've eaten and accumulated this body, and then you're going to grow old and the body won't be able to accumulate as well and you wither, and then you return to the earth? That's a body. That's the material stuff. But the you, the thought that is you, continues to exist so that you can learn more, so that you can grow more. Tell me how it is that the church doesn't believe in reincarnation, but when I was a little kid, they were sitting there telling me I'm an old soul. Well, you can only be old if you grow. You can die while you're young, but you can only be old if you grow. You can only grow by existence. So a soul, in order for a soul to be old, it has to have lived before. That's one thing. Then you can go look at John 9, 1 through 3. Context clues. Jesus heals a blind man. The apostles asked him, "Who is it that did sin that this man was born blind? Was it himself or was it his parents that did the sin?" And Jesus said, "Neither. He was born this way so that I could work this miracle." analyzation. Why would they ask him who did sin that he was born blind? Which implies karma, one, because if you did something bad in your other life, you can be born blind. Or was it his parents? Well, karma, again, did they make fun of some blind kid horrifically when they were young, and now they had to take care of the blind kid when they're older? Who was it that did sin? Who was it that made a transgression against another person? That this person was born blind. He said, neither. This man accepted to be born blind so I can work this miracle. That means in the higher realm of the spiritual thing, because there's spiritual worlds, there's spheres and principalities and powers and all types of stuff. On these different levels, he accepted to be born blind so that the act of healing the eyes and showing the command over the divine matrix that is around us and the deep in-depth understanding of the law, so that he can show it, manifest it as a miracle. So death led to life and also fertility. Well, those are my three aspects of how I process things, try to see the growth, and observe life and observe death. We've tucked death away. We put people into the old folks' homes and we let them rot instead of them living out their lives with their grandchildren, them getting ready to go back into the spirit world, and the grandchildren just coming out of the spirit world. This is what they do inside villages in Africa. They're like, well, this dude, I watched the documentary. This dude went to a village and he was sitting there and he was like, why is the old one always with the young one? And it's like, oh, well, everyone hangs out with people they're like. So they're the two that's most like each other. And he was like, what? They're not like each other at all. I was like, no, you're thinking about it wrong. The kid just came out of the spirit world. So it can tell the old person's spiritual teachings. And then the old person's getting ready to go into the spirit world. So they can pass on the knowledge for the place here to the child. So they're the ones that are most alike that need to communicate the most. And I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense. Like, the Lord isn't the author of confusion. That makes a lot of sense of why that would work like that. We took death away so that we don't see it. We no longer hear the bleating of the lamb as it is executed, or the ox, or the pig. You go to a supermarket and you just easily pick up the meat, trusting that it's been raised right, it's natural, not full of things. But now we know it's full of hormones and other chemicals that get within us and hurt our body because we have detached ourselves from death. And that's a really big issue. Death is not something to be touched away. Whenever I thought about the armor, I thought about like wars in heaven. How would you expect an army of the Infinite One to fight? You hear about Odin and Valhalla and all them waiting for Ragnarok, the end of times. Cool, but they're not of the Infinite One that sheds itself in many forms and different things. Like, yeah, they could be like it's like Valhalla. They're trying to fight hard enough so they can get into the Infinite One's army, because that's just how cold-blooded all these people are in there. Like, if you're going to get into a fight with that army and you manage, man, it's not the army. These people have all different types of variations. If I'm looking around observing the nature, so many different types of trees and plants and everything else like that. And then us, we have so many different types of inner natures and things we like to do. Imagine how people could have progressed this. Some of these warriors might be using trumpets and sound to fray you and fry you up and disassociate your atoms. Whew, ashes. Some of these people may burn from the inside with such a zeal that when they let it out, it's just like a black fire that consumes all things. Ashes. Another person can come up and he's going to fight you hand to hand. Movement so smooth that it's like water flowing around, and all you know is heads are falling all around him. He has no need to stop. He continues to go as if he's dancing for hours, lost in rapture, destroying inside the armor that doesn't look all pretty and light. It looks like, since they want to put on armor to fear the Lord, to make the Lord be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to fear you, blah, blah, whenever you don the armor of this entity, of the one that made all things, it is like a nightmare. It reminds me of Robert Oppenheimer and how he talked about the atomic bomb going off. Go watch the video. Go watch it. Make sure you watch it. It's just the way his voice is, the way his face is as he's recalling it. And you can see the trauma that he did to himself out of that. And it brought up the line of the Bhagavad Gita. He talked about the bomb went off and the atomic bomb testing, it went off and just spread across into life. And all of a sudden, it reminded me of a line from the Bhagavad Gita where Vishnu was trying to persuade the prince. It's actually Krishna, but Krishna is an avatar of Vishnu. So I can see why he said that. And he said, and so he put on multi-armed form and say, now I become death, destroyer of worlds. The way he says it in this multi-armed form, you've seen some Hindu depictions and they're looking all crazy. And then you think about the DMT faces that they show into the tunnel, and imagine, because people say when they take DMT, they see those figures, which once again, the brain, the pineal gland makes DMT. Just pointing this out. They put on multi-armed form and it comes down, and to fight some dude that's one with this and knows this is fighting the most horrible monstrosity that you could ever fight. Because it is all things. Your army just might fall to one of them, and that's it playing around, having a good jest, because that's the being that's within this, that's the son of, the Father is nothing, but the one that's here, that's having this perception, that's living within the spirit, that's as this thing, and this is what it's built itself to be through its own striving and earning, meeting it halfway. The things that it could be, that armor that it wears, the understanding, the transcendental, all of it, and that's from serving that. This serves that. And all these things here, we do not know how far this can truly be pushed. We don't know the rules of reality. You don't think about the ways everything breaks down because you don't think about death. You hide away death. And since you hide away death, you don't seek out what is eternal, what is true, what is permanent. And it's inside the Upanishads. They talk about it inside of here. Katha Upanishad. Nachiketa, a seeker, seeks to talk to death. And death was not there at his house for 3 days. So he sat there and meditated. So when death returned, he offered him boons. He gave him 2 boons of whatever. It was Nachiketa was my father was mad at me when I left. I have him be, all right with me. He was standing at death's door. Anyway, he was turning on we turn on DMT when we're dying. All right. We can figure out how to turn it on. Sitting in the valley of the shadow of death, meditation, having this turned on, death's door. He's sitting at death's door. And then he says, I'll give you a special boon as a sacrifice. It's thus I have granted your second boon, Nachiketa, the secret of fire. that leads to heaven. It will have your name. Ask now, Nachiketa, for the third boon. And it talks about the sacrifice of fire above that, which I'm pretty sure inside my practice, what I was doing by offering things to the flame, the things within myself, my carnal things, and burning them up, I was doing fire sacrifices inside myself at my altar. Because your altar is within your temple, and your temple is, your body is your temple, and you are the spirit within it. So, Nachiketa asked for his third boon, and this is his third boon. Now, this leads to a very powerful discourse between the two, and you really want to pay attention to it, especially when it comes to death. Hopefully, you will find value inside of this the same way that I did, and if you think about it long enough, it does come to make sense, because if it didn't, I wouldn't be sitting here telling you about it. I had already experienced this before, and then when I was reading over again, I'm like, man, this is awfully familiar to what I was thinking. Really familiar. And I'm going to go ahead and relate it to you in my child form of like how I was perceiving things. So I think this also is a good way to get the message across of what I'm trying to show you. Nachiketa. When a person dies, there arises this doubt. He still exists, some say. He does not, say others. I want you to teach me the truth. This is my third boon, Yama. This doubt haunted even the gods of old, for the secret of death is hard to know. Nachiketa, ask for some other boon, and release me from my promise. Nachiketa, this doubt haunted even the gods of old, for it is hard to know. O death, as you say, I can have no greater teacher than you, and there is no boon equal to this. Yama, ask for sons and grandsons who will live 100 years. Ask for herds of cattle and elephants and horses and gold and vast land, and ask to live as long as you desire. Or if you can think of anything more desirable, ask for that, with wealth and long life as well. Nachiketa, be the ruler of a great kingdom, and I will give you the utmost capacity to enjoy the pleasures of life. Ask for a beautiful woman of loveliness, rarely seen on earth. When I was a kid, I used to play Gran Turismo. Me and my brother. I have 5 brothers. One of them, one of my stepbrothers. He's my brother. We're closer. We play Gran Turismo, talk about the cars we're going to drive, the type of women we wanted to be with, the type of houses we wanted to live in, all this fancy stuff, all the bling bling. But as I worshipped and followed death more, and I watched death, I observed death, everything fell away, because none of that would matter. It got to be really bad. That's why I said I was dysphoric. I was dissatisfied with everything. I wake up, get a Pop-Tart, go to school, sit for 8 hours through things I didn't want to hear, but some of the things started giving me basic education. I understand it was needed to be forced upon me so that I could learn and grow myself, so that I can seek out my own wisdom. That's what school's for. But also to condition you to be there for 8 hours a day, because you can learn in many different ways and forms. Not everyone learns the same way. So you can go 8 hours at a job when you get older, and then go to college for 4 hours. Just a little job, enough to make it through. You struggle. And then you get your degree, which you got to pay that back, but now you're supposed to get a big person's job. Supposed to be making a lot of money. So shouldn't be that hard to pay that back. And you'll work and do this thing forever, not thinking about the deeper things of life. You get caught up inside of the merchant class of people, the traders, the farmers of the land, inside of life. Or maybe they're the ones at the bottom The ones that are just going through the motions. They're not even playing a game. You think you're playing a game, but you're working for someone else, building all this stuff, but you've never done anything for yourself. You have kids. Now everything's about your kids. Your whole life is focused on your kids. Nothing is for you. Or you have kids and you don't want to deal with your responsibility, so you run away from it and you jump into video games, or you go fishing all the time, you hunt, you still want to go out and hang out with the boys, so you don't understand your responsibility. Playing two different games. It's all, what game do you want to play? Life is one big series of choices that you've made, yes or no, and it leads to different outcomes and different ways that you feel. Different things you've accepted yourself to be as, even though you may not be, and so you paint yourself that color so that you can experience that thing. That's what life is. Why? He's telling them, ask for these things. Ask for elephants, cars, and horses, big fast bikes. Ask for gold. Ask for the money. Ask for vast land. Ask for having the big house and all the empires. Ask for the women, all the women you could lay with and drink. I didn't understand that when I was younger. I forgot. I tell you, I forgot. I became a completely, after my teenager years, I did fall completely. I was the fallen. I used to call myself that when I was in Japan. And I forgot. And I drank all the drink, and I spent all the money, and I had all the women, and I did all the things, and it led to a hollow hole inside of me that was still gnawing of this was not enough. So that couldn't have been the answer. So I retraced my steps and stepped out of that shadow that I put myself into and went back inside myself from being active with the world to where I started to reflect again, start moving in deeper. As for the women of loveliness, rarely seen on earth, riding in chariots, skilled in music, to attend on you, but Nachiketa, don't ask of me about the secret of death. Nachiketa, these pleasures last but until tomorrow, and they wear out the vital powers of life. How fleeting is all life on earth. Therefore, keep your horses and chariots, dancing and music for yourself. Never can mortals be happy by wealth. How can we be desirous of wealth when we see your face and know we cannot live while you are here? This is a boon I choose and ask for you. Nachiketa had already seen it. Death's face was already hanging over him. It was already present. Already there. Always watching. A giant asteroid can fall from the sky right now and hit me. A stray bullet can come through the window and kill you. Death is always present. You learn to live with it and accept it, that you may die doing something. But you build inside your character that your death, the physical death, means nothing. It's the thought that you were trying to leave behind. And that way, you spread yourself. You help others. He wanted to know the way to impermanence, or to permanence from this impermanence of the outside that changes, the pleasures that disappear, and you have to go satisfy them again. The senses constantly calling for your attention. Having approached an immortal like you, how can I, subject to old age and death, ever try to rejoice in a long life for the sake of senses' fleeting pleasures? That's why I say everyone's playing games. Senses' fleeting pleasures. It's what you want. What is your inner being telling you? Not the position you're in, all the money and things like that. If we came together, we could make a world where we could live by our inner beings, come to understand things, and have great technology on the outside. Everyone be fed and clothed and sheltered and understood and healed, and things would be better, and we would actually be a global society. But you can't force these things externally. You have to go inside yourself to understand yourself And when you can see you clearly, you will see the other inside of people, their self, and that self and this self just has two different stories that they've told themselves, but they're still at the core the same being. A laugh is a laugh in everything. Tears and grieving over death is the same in every place. Those who are attached to the mortal physical things, all these emotions that arise are the same for us. A smile is involuntary. If we find it funny, this is what we do. We smile. We have a common thread. Dispel this doubt of mine, O King of Death. Does a person live after death or does he not? Nachiketa asked for no other boon than the secret of this great mystery. Yama. The joy of spirit ever abides, but not what seems pleasant to the senses. The joy of the spirit ever abides, but not what seems pleasant to the senses. But these differing in their purpose prompt us to action. All is well for those who choose joy of the spirit, but they miss the goal of life who prefer the pleasant. I warn my students this. This is something that I learned before I read this. Beware, death is stagnation. That is what true death is, stagnation. I'm walking my path through the blinding desert, through the darkness of the night, inside wildernesses, no moon. Just my own awareness as my way being, the things I can feel before me. And inside the dark, you can feel all the things. Like if you ever get inside a dark room completely and you start just like an open room, you can feel other things there moving around you. You feel all this stuff happening. It's like your mind is doing it and you lose sense of your body, if you're there or not, where you're stepping. If you try to step, well, you'll fall down, but you learn how to walk inside the darkness. And you continue to go forward. So you do not become stagnant, because if you stay there, you will never get out of the darkness. If you stay in the darkness and don't walk forward, you will not get out of the darkness. And pleasant things as well. Yes, you can, oh, this person, they're so pleasant, they're so this and that, but you're not able to live with them. You get wrapped up inside of them. It's pleasantry. It's how pleasant this feels. It feels so good to me. It feels so good. So, as it says, the joy of the Spirit, all is well for those who choose the joy of the Spirit, but they miss the goal of life who prefer the pleasant. Now, which way are you feeding your spirit? That light will blind you. It'll make you become stagnant again. You won't continue to move forward on your path, your personal journey back to the infinite creator. The light will blind you. Continue to walk even while you're blind. You couldn't see while you're in the dark. Now you can't see because the lights have overtaken you. And you're caught inside all this. Continue to walk on. Because the spirit joy, your spirit will ever abide. If you choose to do this way and be stuck in the light, your spirit's going to abide there. And you'll feel some joy from that until you don't. If you're like in a relationship or something. Until you don't. It'll feel good until it doesn't. And then you're going to keep on moving forward. It's going to be a painful thing. But not what seems, the joy of spirit ever abides, but not what seems pleasant to the senses. It's not pleasant to your senses, but your joy of your spirit, your inner spirit can continue to go on. Both these differing in their purpose and prompt us to action. Your spirit and what your senses do, they have different purposes and they prompt us to action about what we feel, sense, and what our spirits feel, senses, physically, both. All is well for those who choose the joy of the spirit, but they miss the goal of life who prefer the pleasant. Perennial joy or passing pleasure. This is a choice one is to make always. Those who are wise recognize this, but not the ignorant. The first welcomes what leads to abiding joy, though painful at a time. So the joy that never ends, the ever abiding joy that you're promised to be inside of like the churches and stuff like that, Well, the body is a temple. You have to go inside your temple. You have to go through what's unpleasant, what's painful. Okay? But it's going to lead to the place inside you where there is abiding joy that does not ever end. But for you've cleaned yourself fully. You've stripped away those carnal things. You fleshed yourself, as I call it, and you put it onto the altar and burned it. So it might not feel good all the time, but it will lead to abiding joy if you continue to do it and work on yourself. The latter run, goaded by their senses, after what seems immediate pleasure. Well, have you renounced these passing pleasures, so dear to the senses, Nachiketa, and turned your back on the way of the world that makes mankind forget the goal of life? Are you done with playing the games that everyone wants to play that makes you forget what the true purpose of your life is? This is the teaching of death. I'm going to stop right there for this one. We're going to have another death video. But this is the beginning of my relationship with death. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll get more into this. Death is something that truly needs to be discussed because death does lead to life, eternal life, if you understand death. Once you transcend your fear and the way that you want to tap it, put it away somewhere else where it's not comfortable with you, you have to become one with nature and understand life and death are part of the cycle of all things that are born. They must die. And once you start to understand that, you'll be able to see the Creator go through the seasons, how things continue to go on, and how that tree becomes another tree, the seed becomes itself and everything. We're going to go over that inside of the Hebrew alphabet, how it's supposed to be made with our hands, and how all this is. It's all the different knowledge that's out there in the world that people aren't tasting. This is some good stuff right here. We're going to keep on covering it. I'm the Priest of Ashes. I aspire to inspire you to be your highest ideal. That is all I require from anyone, is to be your highest version of yourself. Not for me, but for you. Later.